Hi, welcome to What's the Word? I'm your host, Jaime McFaden, and I'm so excited to have you here. This podcast is about all things wellness. Each week, we will focus on a word of the day, and I interview some of the most inspirational people I know and share that inspiration with you. Join me, let's learn together on What's the Word.
This is the place where I belong.
Hi, and welcome to What's the Word? I'm your host, Jaime McFaden, and this podcast is about all things wellness. Each week, we're going to focus on a word of the day. To kick it off today, our word is adaptable, which is the ability to adjust to new conditions. And today, I am so excited for our guest, who is someone I have always admired and been inspired by, incredibly talented performer and badass mama bear, Jaquelynn Herrera. Hey. She's performed alongside artists like Mark McGrath, Coolio, and Sugar Hill Gang, and you've pretty much sang at every Bay Area sports event, I think. And now you are Mercy from your own band, Mercy and the Heartbeats. Am I right?
Yep.
Yeah, well, welcome to the show. Once again, thank you so much. I'm so happy to have you here to discuss this word of the day that truly represents you. I've known Jackie for many, many years. We actually met, probably over 10 years ago, auditioning for the same voiceover role. And then we became friends ever since then. And I've just known that you've always had the ability and the willingness to adapt to many different situations. And you've always had the discipline and the tenacity to keep going. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So thank you so much. Welcome to the show. And I want to kick it off with asking you, when you think about the word of the day, adaptable, how does that represent you and what does that mean to you?
Well, it's something that I've what we were talking about earlier, or I was thinking about when we were talking about words that resonated with each other. Adaptable for me has been something that's been forced upon me, especially this year, but has been something that I've always been open to, because it's not always easy, even though you have to be adaptable and pivot. And especially in this industry that we're in the entertainment industry, or that's how I met you.
Right.
That's where I've been my whole life, and it's ever changing. Technology changes it. So it's something that right now has been like not only the word of the day, it's been the word of the year.
And I think not just for you. I think that this word, when you mentioned it to me, when I asked you words that, really resonate with you right now and you brought that up, I thought, okay, let's go on that, because I think right now, for anyone that's listening, this is a tough time for all of us in some way. And no matter what, when anyone's going through a tough time or a pivoting time, being able to be adaptable and still have the discipline to keep going even when you don't feel like it is something that I've always witnessed you do so well. So how do you do it so well? And do you have any tips that you can share on being more adaptable? How can we be a little more adaptable?
So sweet that someone thinks I do it well. Well, first, I am a huge advocate of therapy. I have been in weekly therapy for about 6 years now. And so that's like the main thing. I think that you need someone that's not a friend, that's trained, that is not a family member, that can get you through times. And they're not always hard times. There's some times that I kind of feel like, why am I going to therapy today? I don't have anything to talk about. And it's interesting things that come up that you don't realize you're going through, or just need to kind of talk out. So that's my first thing. The second thing, aside from that, is having friends that you can lean into and lean on. And that will get you through, and that you can bounce things off. But that will also hold you accountable.
Right. That will call you on your shit.
I love my friends that will you're one of those. You have called me out on my shit numerous times throughout a relationship. And it's always like, I love that. And I need that, because I need boundaries, which is a huge thing that's also one of my other favorite words. But that's a big part. I also think you need to have something that's outside of your family, that's yours and your own, that you can kind of that can be your form of meditation. It doesn't have to be to sit and meditate. It doesn't have to be yoga or prayer, but just whatever is your thing, whether it be music, whether it be exercise, whether it be fishing. Like, I feel everybody needs to have their own little thing that's theirs, a hobby or whatever, that just kind of like also just helps you to reset and remind you who you are to yourself. And then that kind of helps you figure out what you need to do next and how you need to lean into yourself and trust yourself. And I mean, because this year it's the pandemic has affected everything from my business to my child's schooling, to my wedding was canceled, rescheduled, postponed. And then we decided we weren't going to let that stop us. So then we did get married, but
my first Facebook wedding I've ever been to. It was beautiful.
And but and all the while, and again, like learning to be, you know, able to be adaptable or whatever, doesn't mean it feels good. And it takes practice, and like anything. And even though I'm like, okay, we're going into kindergarten distance learning, I'm going to adapt to this, doesn't mean I love it. Doesn't mean I like it, but it's also a way of being accepting and just being open to that you can't control everything. So you might as well make the best of the situation you got. And that's been a lot of it. And I mean, luckily I have a partner. My husband, Kyle, is amazing and helps me. And he's a huge support. Oh my God. He's such a big support of that.
And he's in your band.
Well, yeah, I mean, but like our band, like that's probably, this is the least I've worked since I was 13 years old. And this has been really scary in that trying to find ways to still stay relevant, even though our industry is hit.
Right.
Like our industry is like the last that's going to come back. And even though right now we can't really monetize really what our band is, just even still staying relevant and staying current and in people's minds and staying like, well, maybe there is a way to do virtual concerts or, you know, whatever.
Which I have to say, not to cut you off, but I have to say, definitely want to share all your information, because the virtual concerts that you guys have done where you've just sat on your couch and literally played and sang have made my day, let alone many days. Because sometimes we just need music.
We get that a lot. And so when you're the artist and you're kind of like, okay, well, this isn't what we're used to doing and how we're used to performing. But again, we need to adapt our style or what we can do. And luckily we're quarantined together, so we can do it together. But we forget, since we're the performers, that we're just kind of like, does anybody care? We're sitting on a couch and we're not doing our same thing and, you know, whatever. And then we start getting these little messages of like, are you guys going to do one of your things? And we realize we haven't done it for a while. So we were even just talking that we have to schedule another one, because it's like, okay, it's about time. Like,
yes, it's time.
Interesting enough. And then on top of that, like even I had kind of had the idea for our podcast that we started in January. I'd had last year that kind of really, honest to God, started as I needed ways to create content. And I was like, well, that would be a fun, easy way with the two of us. We could do that. We live together, you know, and that has become such a bigger thing than that. And the people also that, like, I looked at the numbers recently. I'm like, oh, people are actually listening to us.
It's awesome.
There's not many husband-wife teams. At the time we weren't married, but there are not a lot of husband-wife teams. And we thought, you know, it's kind of interesting that we run a band together, we run a business together, and we're married. And, you know, this could be kind of interesting to talk about. And I can't really find a lot of that out there. So that's been kind of fun talking about our business, but also the relationship side of things. So it's been
now
fun.
Your podcast name, remind me, is it the same?
It's called Mercy and the Manz, because
Mercy and the Manz. Okay, well, we're gonna add this, but yes, I remember the Manz.
Yeah, and that's been a fun thing that we've kind of, again, like adapted that into this whole other thing, to the point where I'm like, do we have to actually come up with a Instagram handle for that? Its own
right
thing. So it's kind of, yeah, it's all learning.
All learning. Okay, so now I want to kind of recap some of the things that you just talked about in terms of being adaptable, because I do feel like, my main goal for this podcast is to get amazing, incredible people like you on here to share real life stories like you just did with us about some of the tough stuff that we have to go through, the real stuff that we go through. It's not always getting up on stage and just being able to perform. It's like now your life has been shifted in so many different ways, just like many of ours, and you've had to continuously adapt. So what I want to know from you is, you said being open and flexible a few times. So I think that's one really big tip, is being open, being flexible. You said, seeking out support, help, whether it's professional or whether it's, you have a really good group of friends that can say things how they really are and not just what you want to hear, or not necessarily family, just saying what they think would be best for you, right?
Again, I think for me, the biggest one is knowing that it's not going to necessarily feel okay. Like, because I think for me anyway, I beat myself up a lot, and I know it has to be this way, but I don't like it. But to be adaptable, you don't necessarily have to like it.
So it's getting uncomfortable, or getting comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And like, it might never feel comfortable with whatever it is you're doing, but I think that you just kind of have to, it won't always be that way.
Right.
So I think that's a big thing, is like, I think people go or say that, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel right. I don't like this, but that doesn't mean it's always going to feel that way, for one.
Right.
And you kind of just have to push through that feeling, I think.
Right. So now with your music, where does the inspiration for most of your music and your songs come from?
Well, right now, Mercy and the Heartbeats is predominantly a cover band. So with that, we choose and what's nice though, is since we run the band, we get to pick the songs that we like to do. A lot of it is just kind of like guilty pleasures. No one was going to work at your event or wedding or whatever, but a lot of it is guilty pleasure and like the stuff that we like. Kyle has been a little bit more, he's been working more on original stuff and producing and playing. Oddly enough, with what's going on, he's had more session work. And we've been talking more about working on that. For me, honestly, I have had a harder time being creative with what's going on. It's kind of like this pressure of being an artist or being a musician, like, well, this is perfect time for you to be creating stuff, but I haven't felt that.
You're like, hold on, let me homeschool my daughter, or like, let me get on my daughter's Zoom calls. Let me manage my business. Let me get my podcast going. Let me just continue to pivot and adapt.
We adopted a kitten. We're apartment.
You just moved. You just got married. Yeah. Wait. Yeah. And you're not creative?
It feels very forced. So I haven't really felt that. Inspiration for me generally comes from, it's so cliche, but it generally comes from what's going on in my life and things that I'm processing. Right. And so it'll be interesting to see, like, some of the ideas I've had for songs coming up have had to do with my divorce, have had to do with going through that whole part of my life. And then I haven't even got to like the great love story of my life with Kyle yet, because I'm finally like kind of like feel like I've dealt with all of that, even though, madly in love with this man. But it's I can see that that's probably where my inspiration for my next stuff is going to come from.
I love it. And your beautiful daughter, who is amazing and has powerhouse vocals just like you.
She's doing so great. She, I think, it's been about 2 weeks that they've been doing kindergarten via Zoom, and it's tough, but she's doing better than we are with it,
I feel like the kids really are. Their resilience is unbelievable. And the fact that all of this is going on around us and they're not even necessarily that affected by it is just.
Well, again, like, there's things that come up for her, and it's a shock when it does, because I forget that she does have a finger on the pulse, but it's for one, I have to remember, for her, it's kindergarten. Right. She's not miss any opportunities of getting into any school she wants because she's doing kindergarten by Zoom right now. So
Right.
Keep some perspective, mama. So that's the one thing I have to remind myself. And it's fine. It's fine.
Well, and so now you just brought up something that's really important because we're both moms. And so as we wrap this up, I do want to hear from you. I've called you many times like, oh my gosh, is this normal? Or should I be feeling this right now or whatever? Or I'm crying in the bathroom, locked myself in. I'm like, this is really bad. So you've always been a great mom inspiration for me. And I thank you for that. And I think if there's anything that comes up right now that you can share with other moms about just that, being adaptable, being flexible, being, because you always seem to stay grounded and true to who you are, no matter how much chaos there could be going on around you. And I think that's a wonderful element of being a parent. And so if there's any tips that you can offer to other parents about that would be great.
I wouldn't say, because I definitely don't have it figured out, but what I practice and when I do it, it feels better, is to let go of other people's shit.
Let go of other people's shit.
You gotta do what works for you, because what worked for somebody else isn't gonna necessarily work for you, and your own kid. And it's also like finding that, tuning out the voices even in your own head that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not doing it right, and trust yourself that it's going to be fine. And you're not going to mess something up that royally. That's the biggest thing. Cause we can talk to ourselves just as badly as anybody, worse. Mm-hmm. So that's the big thing, is tuning out the voice, like tuning out that self-doubt. And it's something that I have to remind myself all the time, but it's especially like not taking on other people's.
I love that. Tune out the things you don't need to hear, and ultimately don't take on other people's shit. Really, I mean, that's brilliant and profound, and yet seems so simple and sometimes can be really hard to follow through, right? Yeah.
Well, especially with what's going on right now. Everybody thinks they have the answer. Should the kids go back to school? Should they not? You need to be doing this. You're not, distancing enough, or, whatever. And it just really comes down to what is right for you and your family.
Right. Well, and I think that stems true to our word about being adaptable. And so I want to say, first of all, thank you for coming on today. Thank you for taking this time and also being adaptable with me when I had my little computer issues. So thank you for that. Definitely want all of your info. So can you just tell me right now and just spell it out for me, your website or podcast or some form of that?
So it's Mercy and the Heartbeats.
Okay.
.com. That's our website. You can also find Mercy and the Heartbeats on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Awesome.
And Mercy and the Manz podcast is on all podcast platforms.
And it's Man with a Z, Manz?
Manz with a Z. Mercy and the Manz with a Z.
And then last but not least, are you going to do any sort of performance anytime soon?
We are going to be, I'll be announcing that on Instagram. We're probably going to do an Instagram live hang type thing where we chat and we play songs and you throw us requests. We kind of love doing that. We like being stumped and kind of like stuff. So we'll probably do something like that soon. We might be having a virtual event coming out soon. And I've been trying to release a cover every month. And so we have some covers coming up that
Yay! Oh my goodness. Okay, well, thank you. Congratulations on getting married this year. Oh my goodness. So happy for you. And truly, the word adaptable is you. So thank you for being adaptable. Thank you for sharing that with us today, and sending you and your family lots of love. I can't wait to hopefully see you soon. Big virtual hug.
I know, virtual hugs.
Virtual hug. All right, everybody. So that is our episode of What's the Word. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Thank you for joining me here at What's the Word. Follow us on social media with the links on the screen, and don't forget to like and share with your friend. Your support helps us grow and continue to make inspirational content. See you next time on What's the Word.